All right. Shalom. Giving all praises, all glory, all honors unto Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Kakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and bliss to the hopeful elect. This will be another edition of Israelites in History, where I pull articles and different historical points of history and tie them back to the Israelites recorded in the Bible, which are the so-called Black Hispanics and Native Americans. So now what I have here is an article from time.com, which is a reputable news magazine. And this article, this information has been going around internet, social media the last few days, really. So I thought I'd shed some light on it through the spirit of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. And it says here, right, history. The slaves dread New Year's Day the worst. The grim history of January 1st. All right. And for those of you so-called African Americans out there, mainly, okay, although slavery happened to the different so-called Latino American or Hispanic Americans, Native Indian tribes out here, but this is mainly to so-called African Americans here in the States, which can extend to the Caribbean Americans as well, which are really the Israelites, the Southern Kingdom of Judah, which would represent the tribe of Judah, tribe of Benjamin, and tribe of Levi. Okay, but to pinpoint the tribe of Judah here, and just what happened New Year's Eve, going into so-called New Year's Eve and the New Year, which is January 1st. Just to share some truth and some light, while our people are enjoying, the time off. It's Friday, going into the weekend. To shed some light. Open your eyes to the matrix, so to speak, of what has happened that we aren't told in school, and what we aren't told, just things that aren't addressed. Okay, but we're in the last days now, so all things are being fulfilled, and what was hid is now being brought to the light, to quote Yahweh Shai. So now it says, let's see, and this is update December 27, 2019, plus December 27, 2019. And this is my first time actually coming across this, so I'm going to do this video, this lesson. But let me get into it. It says, Americans are likely to think of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day as a time to celebrate the fresh start that a new year represents. But there is also a troubling side to the holiday's history. In the years before the Civil War, the first day of the new year was often a heartbreaking one for enslaved people in the United States. Right? Let me read that again. In the years before the Civil War, the first day of the new year was often a heartbreaking one for enslaved people in the United States. Okay? All right? In the African American community, New Year's Day used to be widely known as Hiring Day or Heartbreak Day, as the African American abolitionist journalist William Cooper Nell described it, because enslaved people spent New Year's Eve waiting, wondering if their owners were going to rent them out to someone else, thus potentially splitting up their families. The renting out of slave labor was a relatively common practice in the antebellum South, and a profitable practice for white slave owners and hirers. So that's it in a nutshell. We are slaves, all right? We are slaves. We have been slaves. we are still slaves underneath the so-called white man here in America. All right? Whether it's through your job, first of all, employee means slave. When you go to the etymology of the word, etymology means the study of truth. Okay? We're slaves. All right? Now, most part, all people races are debt slaves to the corporate America. But it started with us. Okay? And we're still here to this day, being hired and have these jobs and having to work these hours and this time. You know, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you're still a slave to corporate America, all right? The banks, okay? And our history shows that New Year's Eve, this holiday that our people love to celebrate and shoot guns and New Year's resolutions and all of that, you know, involved in getting your days off. You know, our people love that, but this is the truth, okay? Let me keep reading. Oh, and by the way, Betty White is in the spirit world, okay? She made a statement, last week, about how she doesn't eat green, and the Most High saw it fit that she wasn't going to see 100, and the very next week took her spirit back to the heavens, okay? All right? The next dimension. All right? But there is no hell when you die, go to hell. You just go to heavens, you go back to the Most High that gave the spirit. So, you know, her time on here on earth is over with. But nonetheless, back to this. It says hiring day was part of the larger economic cycle in which most debts were collected and settled on New Year's Day, says Alexis McCrossin, an expert on the history of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and a professor at history at Southern Methodist University. But all this goes back to church and all that. Where do they get this from? They get that from the scriptures. All right. There was a time of Jubilee. After so many years, all debts were forgiven. Okay, and that's where Esau get his 7-year forgiveness of debt. You know, he gets that from too. You know, everything goes back to the Bible and back to what so-called black Hispanics and Native Americans, the Israelites, what we have brought to the earth. Okay, as far as how to live, how to govern, our laws, everything. Okay, it goes back to us being the people of the Most High. It says, he writes about hiring day in a forthcoming book, Times Touchstone, the New Year in American Life. Some enslaved people were put up for auction that day or held under contracts that started in January. These transactions also took place all year long, and contracts could last for different amounts of time. These deals were conducted privately among families, friends, and business contacts, and slaves were handed over in town squares, on courthouse steps, and sometimes simply on the side of the road, according to Divided Mastery, Slave Hiring in the American South by Jonathan D. Martin. So now let me get some scriptures. All right, let's get some scriptures. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy. The book of Deuteronomy, the first chapter. Real quick, just to get some context. Right, so this is Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1. Israel's history after the Exodus. It says, "These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel on this side Jordan, in the wilderness, and the plain over against the Red Sea, between Paran and Tophel and Laban and Hazeroth and Dizahab." Okay? So just to give context, and when you read Deuteronomy, you read the Bible, there is a specific people in history that the Bible is written to and for. So now let's go to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. And let's see what was to happen in Israel's history. Blessings at Gerizim and consequences of disobedience. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord, whose true name is Yahweh, not Yahweh or Yahuwah, but Yahweh. Okay, Yahweh, thy God, your God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So let's read some of these curses. With Deuteronomy 28 is Hebrew Israelite 101 to identifying who we truly are. When I say who we truly are, I'm talking about, once again, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? Which would include the Seminole Indians as well. Let's see here. Here we go. This is verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. All right? Our sons and daughters were given to another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. That's these auctioning blocks where they put one father on one block, one mother, daughter and son on another block, and they sell the daughter, they sell the mother, but they might take the father and son, together, and they go off to another plantation. Okay? Let's see here. Verse 33. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. And this is why we're constantly screaming, we shall overcome, no justice, no peace, right? Until this day, what is it, December 31st, 2021, we're only oppressed because these are part of the curses is written in the Bible. Verse 34, so that thou shalt be mad, right? Mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. Damn, they go crazy. Okay? All right? Let's see here. Verse 36, the Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. This is why our people are celebrating Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's today, because we were brought from our lands. All right, we was ran out of our homeland, Israel. We ran into the western coast of Africa for refuge, and there, the majority of us were sold into slavery on slave ships here to America to follow Christianity and Islam and other gods, which although our history was right before us in the Bible, we didn't understand the language, we didn't understand the people, and we didn't understand the religion, yet the Bible resonates with us because they have other gods that we worship, right? Even going into January 1st, that goes back to, I believe, a Roman god of Janus, which he's a two-headed god, one looking forward and one looking back. And that's where you get your New Year's, resolutions from. All this ties into us being disobedient and cursed by the Heavenly Father for doing so. Okay? I'm going to just jump around. This is verse 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. So when we see history and these things in these movies and these mini-series like Roots, and then I'm going to this article in Time magazine about the hiring day or heartbreak day for New Year's Eve. This goes back to this right here. Okay? Let me keep going. Matter of fact, let me get to Oh, well, let me read this. Verse 59. Then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance, which is why our people got diabetes and high blood pressure. I mean, this is a whole, Deuteronomy chapter 28 is a whole lesson within itself. But this is why we got a lot of our people getting the CVID now, okay, and the multiverse variants, okay, because of what's written here. Verse 61, also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. So this is what we have happening to us in real time. This is verse 67. In the morning thou shalt say, would the Most High were even. Oh, I wish it was even. I can't wait to get off of work. As soon as you go, come in at night. And then even thou shalt say, would the Most High were morning. Oh, I can't wait till I can get up, not have to deal with this shootings all night and this crime. Okay? For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And the Lord, Yahweh, right, shall bring thee into Egypt, which means the spiritual Egypt, which is the place of our captivity here in America, again with ships. Because there's no record of our people going, the majority or bulk of our people going into slavery with ships back into Egypt. Okay? All right? Now, there were times in history where our people fled into Egypt and went into Egypt. But it's like the bulk of the tribes are going, or a nation going in slavery with ships. That didn't happen till over here in America. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. That's the key, because we're not in the land of Israel now, which that's our true motherland. We haven't seen our homeland in thousands of years. It says, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you or save you or get you out of that predicament. Okay, so this is what we're seeing when we're watching these these slave movies, and when I'm reading this article here. Okay, let me keep reading some more. It says, accounts of the cruelty of hiring day come from records left by those who secured their freedom, who describe spending the day before January 1st, hoping and praying that their hirers would be humane and that their families could stay together. Why? Because I just read where it said that your sons and daughters shall be given to another people. Of all days in the year, the slaves dread New Year's Day the worst of any. A slave named Lewis Clark said in an 1842 account. And that fear has been lost through the generations of mass media, TV, movies, a very off balance and false education system, a false view of history, things being whitewashed. Okay, it's now our people are looking forward to being off or going to work. Meanwhile, this was the worst day of the year for our people. It says, on New Year's Day, we went to the auctioneer's block to be hired to the highest bidder for 1 year. Israel Campbell wrote, that's spiritual, right? This guy is named Israel. All right, Kala Yahaba Shah, the name just popped up and resonates, wrote in a memoir. Israel Campbell wrote in a memoir published in 1861 in Philadelphia, in which he describes being hired out 3 times. It says that's where that saying comes from, that what you do on New Year's Day, you'll be doing all the rest of the year. A former slave known as Sister Harrison said in an interview in 1937. We don't even say that anymore. We won't even say that anymore. That's not even a thing now, because things have changed over the last, 150, 200 years. Okay. Hey, a lot of people get new jobs or they quit now. So that spirit, that sentiment is still there, but it's not even a proverb amongst us anymore. There's a lot. I'll just read a few of this. Let's see. Harriet Jacobs wrote a particularly detailed account in the Slave's New Year's Day chapter of her 1861 autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Hiring day at the South takes place on the 1st of January. On the 2nd, the slaves are expected to go to their new masters, she wrote. She observed slave owners and farmers renting out their human chattel for extra income during the period between the cotton and corn harvest and next planting season. From Christmas to New Year's Eve, many families would wait anxiously to find out whether they would be rented out and to whom. On New Year's Day, at the appointed hour, the grounds are thronged with men, women, and children waiting like criminals to hear their doom pronounced, Jacobs wrote. Ooh. Hey, man, you know what? This should make you angry, This is not the time to get that, but that was a long time. No, this is what you need to understand, okay? Because there is a recompense and a payback coming to them, and a reward, a recompense coming for us that believe in Yahweh and His Son Yahweh Shai, who the word enemy calls Jesus. Okay, Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, that us turning back to them and not being disobedient, that's what's going to put our people back in the right place for salvation. But this history has to be known. All right. On one of these fateful days, Jacob saw a mother lead 7 children to the auction block. She knew that some of them would be taken from her, but they took all, right? A lot of our grandparents, when you go back to our grandparents, those of us that are maybe between 25, 30, 40 and up, our grandparents, our parents had 5 or 6 brothers and sisters, 8 brothers and sisters, So imagine your grandparents having all their children taken at one time. That's something to think about. It says the slave trader who took the children wouldn't tell her where he was taking them because it depended on where he could get the highest price. Jacob said she would never forget the mother crying out, "Gone, all gone. Why don't God kill me?" If you remember that movie, 12 Years a Slave with Chiwetel Ejiofor and Lupita Nyong'o, she was pretty much distraught in that movie because the slave masters took her children. They were sold. And Solomon Northup, which was played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, he was trying to console her and he was trying to keep a high head, when he got sold into slavery. But, the point is, that was a reality. Okay? Like I said, when I read the scripture, hearts longing, part of the curse was their hearts longing for the children all the day long. Okay? This happened to us. All right? And there's more, man. There's more. There's more to this article. Let me see who it was. Let me see, because I believe it mentioned about watch night. Well, a lot of I'll just say this, watch night, a lot of these churches have what's known as a watch night at their churches. That watch night on New Year's Eve, that goes back to slaves watching to see whether or not they were going to be sold. Look it up, okay? But that's pretty much it, man. This history, let me get this off here. There we go. This history is There's a lot of dark secrets that America holds, and which is why things in America are going bad. This is the Heavenly Father bringing this place down, from the economy to the holiday spirit is not the same. People getting sick. These are the plagues of the Lord, and a lot of our people are feeling it. But there's a blessing going to come to the elect. So now let me go from here. Let's go to the next chapter, because I read this in Deuteronomy 28, which just shows our history. Let me see. Deuteronomy, not the next chapter. Deuteronomy 30. All right, check this out. It says restoration promised. It says, and it shall come, and it's Deuteronomy 30:1, and it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee. We went through the blessing because the Israelites got the promised land, but because of our disobedience, we had to go through the curse. So now we're coming to the end of the curse. We're coming to the restoration that was promised to us actually manifesting itself, which is going to come through the salvation of Yahweh Shai when he returns. All right, and that's the only thing on New Year's Eve that that the elect should be waiting for. That's what I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Yahweh Shai to come back. You know, we're not waiting to be sold anymore. Okay? It says, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee. So we're calling these things to mind. This is why I'm doing this lesson and going over this history. We have to call these things to mind among all the nations, whether we scattered to, America, wherever country, continent, we're all over the planet. Okay? This thing has to come into your mind so we can repent. It says, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day. So now we have to start obeying his voice, keeping the commandments written in the law of Moses. Stop eating pork. Forget these holidays. This is nothing but another day. Saturday, Sunday, Monday go come. You're back to the job you were hired to, right? Okay? So we have to obey the Lord. It says, and shall return unto the Lord thy God, thy power, because your God is your power source, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that then the Lord thy God, thy power, Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy power hath scattered thee. So we're waiting to be gathered back to the Lord out of all these nations. Okay? So now let me read how we're going to be gathered. This is, right, signs of the Messiah's return. Matthew 24:30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, which is why we're having all these so-called UFO sightings this year. It says, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Why? Because he's coming back to get his people. All right? And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. Elect means chosen. Now, not every so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American, not every Israelite, not every Hebrew Israelite is chosen. All right? Because a lot of our people are just not going to hear the good news of what we, the prophets, have been bringing out about being Israelites and so forth, and, you know, everything pertaining to this truth of being a Hebrew Israelite. So they're going to have to fall with the master and be destroyed here in America and wherever else they are. But for the elect, they're going to be gathered. Okay? And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. That means from one place on the earth to another place on the earth. Wherever we are, we're going to be gathered, because the Lord is going to have a restoration for us that he promised us for those of us that return once these blessings and curses are done. Well, once the curses are done, and then we're going to get the full blessing of the kingdom of heaven on earth. So that's it. I wanted to go into this article, dealing with New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. This isn't something to celebrate. This isn't something to smile or laugh about. Except, like I said, I'm waiting for Yahweh Shai to return. That's about it. And that's every day. Okay? But as far as what has happened to our people dealing with this day, the truth has to be brought out. So with that, all praises, all glory, all honors going to Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem and Kakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom.